そういうことですね。
In the first 5 years. So it's a very, and I think cocaine may be even worse. The percentages are not in my favor. That's for sure. That was at the peak of the problems before I moved in with the girl, because that was in a lot of ways moving into the girl with the girl was a felt like a step up because I wasn't chasing drugs all the time. I was living in her real pretty nice apartment compared to where I lived. The apartment that I lived, the female apartment, was very heavily infested with infested is probably right, or with MS-13 gang members. So very, very, very heavily in Houston, and my folks could tell you that I was very nervous about being around them because I wouldn't want to leave my apartment at night.
Good reason.
Yeah, it was very, very. Although there nothing bad ever happened, and they were honestly pretty cordial, not very threatening, but I knew that it was a scary place to be, especially being I was literally the only white guy there. It was like out of the entire complex of probably 2,000 apartments, I was the only white dude. So it was a weird situation where I stood out. I would come home with groceries or whatever, or heroin, and they would all be looking, pointing and stuff. And I'd be like, oh, just don't look at them, So,
but now when you come home now,
now
pointing, if there's anyone pointing at you now,
Yeah,
they certainly aren't saying that.
yes.
So, what made the difference? Where's the change? This moment of I can decide, even while I'm still in the despair, because there's a lot of people that are probably listening to this and go, well, you know what, that sounds good, but I really feel at the bottom of my experience, and I feel so powerless. How can you talk on the one side of being addicted, hopelessly, but then on the other side of the coin still talk about being able to recognize that you had a choice and that you're going to stand in that commitment and then do it? You obviously weren't as despairful as I feel right now.
How as you feel right now?
No, not me. I'm saying the person that's listening.
Yeah.
How do we address this point for someone that is still in this situation?
Well, I think
feeling as hopeless as they do, and then they hear your story, and they say, "Nah, that's."
Yeah, well, I think that's a tough question, and I think that if you're in the middle of feeling like that, you need a way out, right? You need something to believe in, and if they can hear, it doesn't have to be my story, but any story of somebody overcoming, and try to take something from that and apply it to themselves, because ultimately, when you are really hopeless and you don't know where there's a way out, you have to create one. If it's in your mind, you have to make one up. But do whatever you have to do to believe and create a story in your head of a way of getting out of this and succeeding, even if it's something made up. And then you start to get out of that, because there's always steps you can make. And I think one of the things that I am good at, even then, I think even when the worst part, when things were really bad, I always was able to see the positive things that were going on. I was able to disconnect or pull myself back from the negative things. And I think that some degree of that is nature, right? But I think that if people pretend, the whole fake it till you make it thing, I'm a big believer in that. You should start act as if you are where you want to be, right?
Is that one of the Singerman rules?
Kind of, not exactly that, fake it till you're making it. An 8-year-old, that may sound like a bad influencing in a negative way. But yeah, I mean, acting as if you're already there where you want to be. If Asher wants to be the leader on the playground and lead his friends, you need to be acting like that now, acting in a way that they, leading from the front is one of the ones that I teach them a lot. Leading from the front. So you need to be, if you want to be a good leader, you need to, before you're even a leader, start acting like you're a good leader, because nobody's going to follow somebody that isn't a good leader. You're never going to get that initial people to believe in you if you don't even believe in what you're doing. You're not taking those steps. So for somebody who's in despair, I would say, figure out, or positive, what things would you like to be positive, and then start making those steps towards that positivity, as opposed to just thinking about how bad. So, when the people always say, I'm a big believer in one door closes, another door opens, right? The problem is that too many people are staring back at the closed door and be like, damn, that door closed. Oh, now what, right? But the other door is right there in front of them, and all they're focused on is that closed door.
Yeah, the door, because that door used to be open.
Yeah.
And that door's now been closed.
And that's all they're thinking about, instead of saying, well, where's the other door? How do I get out of here? And it's really easy to be like that, for sure, when things don't seem like anything is going your way. But in my life, over and over and over again, I've always seen the other door. So when something bad happens, and you've been witness to some of them, but for a partnership dispute, when my old partner and me, when Kai and I got together as business partners in Dynamic Muscle, I had another business partner in another.
You didn't know that, did you? If you didn't know,
now you know.
Now you know.
Yes, that's a whole story in and of itself. But when me and this business partner had this big dispute, it seemed really bad. And he was calling people and saying things that weren't true and trying to hurt my reputation. And it seemed like a terrible situation. And I ended up losing the business, or getting out of the business, I guess would be more accurate. But it felt like losing the business that I had built for 5 years. It's nothing like Redcon 1. But to me at the time, it felt like, The best way to put it, because there's no other way I can think of putting it, is it felt like I lost a child or something when I lost the business. When I put all this effort and time,
investment,
into something that all of a sudden was just gone, and it had been unfairly taken away. And then the person I thought was my best friend was now telling people things that weren't true on purpose to hurt me for no reason. Nothing that I couldn't even understand what would be the motivation. So I could have very easily been like, oh, my life is over. I'm ruined. I'm never going to get back to this.
The door that was open is now closed.
Just stare at it and be like, oh, I feel sorry for myself. And I did that for one day when it all happened and they had the partnership dispute. One day I felt sorry for myself. And the next morning I woke up and I said, all right, fuck it. Now I'm going to do something bigger and better than that. This is just an opportunity to do that. Now I can go back and look back at that door and say, man, I would have done all these things different. And now for this new open door, I can walk in it with a whole different mindset, and I did that. And I think that's where people get caught up in between, right?
And it's funny you say that because technically that's exactly what you have done. When we consider the fact that Redcon has been able to grow so fast, a lot of times people will hear that and think, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You were able to put together a company infrastructure necessary to support this huge function. I mean, you went from having like 5 employees to like, I mean,
100 plus,
more than 100.
More than 100,
absolutely.
yeah.
I was about to say 5 million. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, but being as far-reaching an influence as you've become, consider now even talking about Iraq now and having Redcon One available there, and thinking about all the new resources that you've been able to develop. To your credit, I would have to think that there were lessons learned with the first experiences of those other said businesses,
absolutely,
and business partnerships that taught some very valuable lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the beginning of this, when we started, you were saying, sometimes people only see the end result, that it's like bodybuilding, where somebody sees the great physique and you on stage, hitting the shots that they have no idea what went into that, how many years and how much suffering and all the things that went into producing this end result. And unfortunately, because of social media, there's a lot of things I like about social media, but people just see the end result now. They don't necessarily see the journey, and we don't really even show them the journey. So if you're focused just on what you're seeing on your phone or whatever, right? You may think like, oh, this guy's always been like this, or Kai Green's always looked like that, or whatever. You know what I mean? You always had these things that you've been doing, but it's a evolution for sure. And I think that if you're going to make a positive evolution, if it's not just sitting in the same place or going backwards, then you have to learn the lessons and you have to be able to take in the experiences and try to better yourself from them. And unfortunately, a lot of times people go through stuff and they don't see the value in it, so they're not able to translate that into action in the future.
I got a question. How important was your writing to you in an effort to build this new enterprise that you have, to your credit?
You mean back in the day with the magazines and stuff?
Well, I mean, I've been a person myself that is like, I didn't see when I was a young person just how valuable writing could have been, and technically really is to me in the present.
Did you journal a lot when you were a kid?
In the very beginning, no, because I didn't learn how to read till I was like 16. But I mean, the idea of writing, and just even understanding how valuable a tool I feel it is today. I'm curious to know for you, just how important would you identify with that? Would you identify writing as being a very helpful tool, and how has it helped you?
So I mean, initially, professionally, it helped me to get into the fitness world and bodybuilding world, because I was able to, in the very, very beginning, one of the things that I did when I decided I wanted to be in the fitness world was start sending out articles for free to people. And one of them, Robert Kennedy, that ends up writing 8 pages in the back of every magazine for a while. But I would send out these things hoping to get my foot in the door. So instead of, that's one of the things is like, you can't start at the top, right? Realistically, most people have no option to do that. So I was trying to give people articles for free just to put me in the magazine so that maybe I could have an opportunity in the future. I was willing to do it for $0. And then I did do a lot of stuff for no money to get into the fitness world, which is fitness and bodybuilding world is very insular. So to get in is tough. But once you're in, you see people that'll recycle from job to job to job, and just you see them, they're at this company one day, they're at the next company, another company, and just stay around. So to get in was very difficult. So for me, initially writing professionally was, or hoping to be professionally, was just kind of the way to get my foot in the door. And then as I've gotten older, reading is a humongous thing. Reading, because I have no actual formal education. So I didn't finish high school. I didn't go to college. I don't have any business degree or anything like that. So reading has been the means with which I've taught myself stuff.
Wow. Say that again, because there's somebody out there that's thinking, I didn't perform so well in school. And
Doesn't matter.
This has always been a nightmare for me. Yeah. And, oh, man, all hope is lost, because there are people that will say that, man, you didn't perform well in those SATs, man. Life is over for you. You know, you're going to have to work jobs and expect minimal pay for the rest of your life.
Yeah, which is definitely not how it worked for me. Now I'm a believer in formal education. I would want my kids to do it, but if Asher or Aiden or whatever, someone of them says they don't want to go to college, I wouldn't lose hope. Most of the times, for my experience, having employees that went to college, a large majority of them spent their time partying and having fun. And very few of them used that time constructively to build a basis of knowledge to get a better career. And then a little more when people get an advanced degree or become a doctor or a lawyer or MBA, that they have a little more plan in their mind, a little less fun, more business oriented. But for me, no, I never did, and I was able to teach myself because I wanted to learn, because I was intellectually curious. And when I wanted to know something, I would look it up. If I was interested in a subject, I would read books on it, and that's always been, seeking knowledge has always been part of my MO once I was older. In school, no, I was not a good student. I didn't pay much attention. I didn't make good grades. I was really uninterested in school, really uninterested in school. And only later on did I realize, that I probably could have done good if I could have manufactured that interest. But I was so ADD as a kid that I just didn't have it in me to force myself to sit down and learn and pay attention. Instead, I was, in high school, I was thinking about what my protein breakdown would be and my macros and all kinds of stuff. It was literally, that was what I would be writing.
Was that your passion?
Yeah, at that age. It took me a little longer to realize that it wasn't going to be a possibility for me, based on genetics, being tall. I'm a tall, skinny Jewish guy. That's the truth. So I've overcome a lot, but you got to be realistic with yourself. I trained with some people that they were progressing so much faster than me that I was like, okay. At some point, I said to myself, okay, this is I'm probably not going to be the next Ronnie Coleman. I'm probably not going to be the next Jay Cutler or whatever. And so that was a mental shift where I realized I wasn't. But yeah, as a high school student, I was definitely obsessed with bodybuilding, and I was the weird kid, in the mid '90s, which was really unusual, walking around with protein powder and mixing shakes at in between classes, and writing down all my macros and keeping a progress of everything, every rep and stuff. That obsession, that level of obsession, is definitely part of, could be a really negative characteristic, but a very positive thing for me, being able to be obsessed. Obsessed is almost a bad word. So extremely driven. Yeah. So that's always been inside of me.
How important was the personal training experience for you in an effort to consider everything that you've become since then?
Well, being a personal trainer, that was my main job, basically, from the time that I got out of high school, pretty much all the way till I didn't have a job. I had jobs in between. I got fired here and there, and I've been fired from so many jobs. It's crazy to think of. Yeah. I got fired from Rolling Burritos, a burrito place before Chipotle. Got fired because I got fired at another restaurant. So I'm remembering going through this stuff for the book stuff. So the sheer volume of jobs that I get fired from is astounding. Because I was great at getting jobs, but I was terrible at keeping them. So I would do a great interview. I'd interview and boom, I get a job, but then I couldn't keep it for any amount of time. I couldn't be on time. I was just a bad employee, which is interesting now, employing all these people, right? I was really bad at being a good employee that entire time. But personal training was the one thing that I stuck with and had some level of success with the whole time. And when I actually got off of drugs, the personal training was what I was doing, and I had a guy there who this guy had a brand new Porsche, and he was the main trainer at this gym. It was actually a wellness center,
A wellness center.
Houston Memorial Wellness Center, and I was there training people, mostly older people, not like athletes or whatever, and I saw that this guy had his name was Mike. He had this new 911. And I was like, man, that was an awesome car, man. I gotta get one like that. I was like, one day I'll figure out a way to get it. And he goes, you're never gonna get a car like that. And I was like, whoa.
Discouraging? Was he a hater?
He literally said it just like that. He's like, you'll never get a car like that.
Never get a car like that.
And I was like, what? I was like very shocked. I was like, why would you say that? And he's like, because you don't love what you do. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I see you in here training people and stuff. He's like, I can tell you don't love what you do. And I was like, so what does that have to do with the Porsche? And he goes, the reason why I have the Porsche is because I love training these people. I love doing the diet. I love my job. He's like, I go home late at night thinking about how I'm going to train the next day, and I come up with plans for my clients. And I can't wait to get back here to help more people. And I love it. And I can watch what you're doing, and I can tell you don't love it. And I was like, oh. He's like, am I wrong? Do you love it? And I was like, no, not really. I'm just trying to pay the bills, And he's like, well, you need to figure out what you love and go after that. He's like, there's nothing wrong with paying the bills, but you won't get a Porsche doing this. And it really resonated with me. That night I went home and really thought about like, well, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for me? Because it felt true. It didn't feel like he was insulting me. It felt like he was right. Like, this is not how I'm going to get a Porsche.
So quietly in the back of your mind, what he said just confirmed.
Yeah, because I was like, he's right.
Understood.
Yeah, he's right. I'm paying my bills. I'm doing this job so I can live and not do drugs and have some stability in my life. And so the only thing I could come up with was bodybuilding. That was the only thing I could think of that I loved. And I was 26 years old, so it wasn't like a young kid. I was a man pretty much,
Absolutely.
and so like the only thing I could think of was bodybuilding, and that was when I decided the decision to pursue it. And so I stopped doing anything other than that, other than trying to pursue it. So I was on the bulletin boards back in the day. They had a whole bunch of bulletin boards, and I'd go on there. And I was the only one that was Aaron Singerman. Everybody else was Swole Gun 69, Shredded Glutes or whatever. I was the guy who was Aaron Singerman. And it was a strategy because I was hoping that somebody would notice me and say, oh, who's this Aaron Singerman? He's got stuff to say. And I had a picture of me as my avatar, and nobody was doing it. This was before really Facebook or anything like that. So
wait a minute. So you were thinking about idea of marketing?
100%. The whole reason I was doing it was that. The whole reason I would post, I'd be like, how many times can I post today? How many intelligent comments can I make in the fitness world somewhere so that maybe somebody eventually will notice this guy, and I'd post on places like musculardevelopment.com on the forums there, on Get Big. Chad Nichols had a forum I posted on a lot back in the day. There was a whole slew of them. And then another thing I did was I'd listen to every podcast. There weren't a whole lot of podcasts back then. There was the podcast that Dan Solomon and Bob Chick did.
Motivate yourself to get in shape. Does anybody know? Yeah, just coming enough and just like that one. Yeah, well, all right, so let me tell you this. How it starts all in the mind. You visualize. Like, I remember being a little boy one time, a long time ago. And I remember watching a television program that used to come on. It was titled Star Trek. That was very, very, very far off in the infinite future. A star character that used to communicate with his friends and co-workers thousands of miles away. But he did it with a very small pocket-sized device that used to fold out. And it was a kind of phone. But it wasn't just any kind of phone. It was a communication device. They affectionately called it a communicator. Now this was again like probably somewhere around 30, 40 years ago. 30 or 40 years before
And Pro Bodybuilding Weekly. And then there was one with Larry Pepe did a podcast back then. There was Dave Palumbo and John Romano did a podcast for MD.
Noble.
Yeah, Noble Radio with for MD. And then there was Superhuman Radio with Carl Lenore, which was like physical culture and stuff. And so I would, after the shows were over, I would email them because their email was public. And I would email them something nice about the show or like, try to like engage with them. Every once in a while they write back, oh, thank you, appreciate it or whatever. Most times they didn't write back. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to try something different. Instead of being complimentary, I'm going to be insulting. And so I wrote Carl Lenore, the first one. I only tried really with one. I wrote Carl Lenore about a sponsor that he had, Can-C eye drops. Because he said,
Can-C.
Can-C.
Oh, Can-C.
So
Okay.
the idea is you put it in your eyes and then you don't need glasses anymore. It takes a little time.
Okay.
And so I wrote him out, that's bullshit, Carl. You know that shit doesn't work. Like you're selling out. You're selling to shit. You know it doesn't even work. There's no way that the Can-C eye drops make you so you don't need the glasses anymore. And he wrote back like a whole thing being like, basically being insulted and saying, hey, what's your phone number? I want to call you and explain. And so I gave him my phone number and he called me and it was like, I looked at it as like, this is my opportunity. And so we talked for a while.
Created the opportunity.
Yeah, I created the opportunity. We talked for a while. He explained himself and we hit it off on the phone. And I said, hey man, like I've listened to all your shows. Nobody has ever interviewed you on your own show. I was like, I would love to come on and interview you. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, well, like, let's get on a call and explain what you're thinking. And so he's like, look, what do you got in tomorrow or whatever, a few days later. And so I was like, okay. And so I took that as my opportunity and I created wrote down a whole pitch to pitch him. And I told my folks about it and how excited I was. And they were excited for me and I was all ready for the call. And we called and I gave him the pitch and he's like, all right, let's do it. Come on the show and interview me. And then I prepared for a week, like I was studying for the most important exam of my life to do this interview. And I interviewed him when it was over. He said, man, you've never done radio before? And I said, no, I've never done any radio before. He's like, man, you were really good. He's like, you have a great radio voice. And I said, I do? I do? Nobody told me that ever before. He's like, yeah, you got a great voice for radio. He's like, and you're really good. And you seem like you're on top of it. I mean, I couldn't believe how good you were with the questions. And I'm like, it's because I've been practicing like a crazy. I don't tell him I'm looking in the mirror saying the questions over and over, practicing and practicing. So he goes, would you ever want to do like a show? And I was like, yeah, well, I would love to do like a bodybuilding show. And he's like, well, I don't know a whole lot about bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding. I was like, doesn't matter. I'll line up the guests and you produce it and we'll get on and we'll do it. And so we did. He said, okay. And we created a show called Off Topic Radio. We did 300 hours of this show together. And it was my foray into the world of actual fitness and also advertising. And it was, that was the whole thing that got me going. And if it wasn't for that level of dedication and almost really obsession, where I stopped doing everything else. Like I didn't go to the movies, I didn't go out to eat. How can I get into the bodybuilding world? I'm gonna take all that crazy focus, the same focus it was important to get heroin. Like heroin was life or death. So that's what I felt anyway. So I put all that into this and it paid off. So it's very easy as a person who doesn't go, well, I'm never gonna get there, right? To this, where I'm at now. You look where you're at maybe, and you say a person might say, well, there's no way to get there. Well, I didn't just get here.
Right.
You know, that was the first step. And what did I do? I obsessively focused on that one thing. And then I got a job for free. Like my success, huge success, where I felt like I won the lottery, was to do a podcast where I got paid zero, you know? And that led to something else, led to something else, led to something today. But